Welcome back to the Centre for Christian Spirituality for our reflection on the Gospel of the fourth Sunday of Advent. I invite you now to listen to the text. In those days, Mary set out and went with haste to a Judean town in the hill country, where she entered the house of Zechariah and greeted Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the child leapt in her womb. And Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit and exclaimed with a loud cry, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And why has this happened to me, that the mother of my Lord comes to me? For as soon as I heard the sound of your greeting, the child in my womb leapt for joy. And blessed is she who believed that there would be a fulfillment of what was spoken to her by the Lord." Mary is the focus of this little snippet. Certainly the acknowledgement of Jesus is there, but it is the mother of the Lord that is causing this reaction. That it is Mary coming and the response is to her. And Elizabeth's prayer, "Blessed are you among women," this is what we take up in the Hail Mary, that it was acknowledgement of what God has done for Mary. So it's not just Mary alone, as it were. It's Mary as the one whom God has blessed in a unique way. And secondly, Mary as the one who has responded to God. That Mary is a woman of faith, and her relationship to Jesus is really the outcome of the request of the Father. So Mary's way of living out her faith was to be the mother of Jesus. In a sense, this little snippet prepares for what is to come, which is basically Mary's prayer, the Magnificat, "My soul glorifies the Lord," in which the points that are made in this little snippet are actually filled out as Mary herself acknowledges what God has done for her and that she needs to respond to that. So it's a scene in which Mary really is the focus, and it doesn't take away from the presence of Jesus in her womb, but it does acknowledge the uniqueness, the unique role that she has been given to play by God.
I could talk about this little snippet for the next hour. I won't talk about it for the next hour, but it just thrills me. It totally thrills me.
Yes.
Because there's this tiny little snippet, but it's when Mary greets Elizabeth and those words hit her ears, the child in her womb leaps for joy. So John the Baptist recognises the Lord, and then Elizabeth recognises that the mother of my Lord is standing there. So it's the invisible infant in the womb
Yes.
that are the other players in this tiny little scene. But it's when they hear the greeting and when we hear the word that the child leaps in your womb.
That's
It's
right.
not the seeing, but the hearing.
Yes.
I just think it's extraordinary. And in a way, too, that very presence of people. It's interesting that the presence of some people ignite that sense that the Holy Spirit is in that scene, is living and breathing
Yes.
with those people. Extraordinary.
And I think the Holy Spirit has brought about this meeting. One of the commentators makes the point there that Mary set out in haste, but that the word there suggests not just haste in time, but haste with an attitude of heart. It's like a mother being told that a child is sick. Well, there is haste, but it's not a haste in time, but a haste out of concern to look at this mystery which has been revealed to Mary, just as it has been revealed to Elizabeth.
And when that concept of the child leaping in your womb,
Yes.
when you actually feel a child in your womb, it is utterly extraordinary. It's
It is.
utterly beyond yourself.
Yes.
You cannot imagine that reality. And in this, it's connecting the carnal, the body, with the spirit, utterly changing your perception.
The commentator I was quoting singled out the in haste. He singled out the leaping in the womb, and he singles out the loud cry. Elizabeth, the three elements that sort of
I
add to the
get
movement.
goosebumps.
Yes.
It's such a small snippet, but it's...
Yes.
Oh,
I take your word for that. Richard. Well, my poor reflection after that, I was just surprised, even though I've read that story and reflected on many times, the significance of the role of women in this new beginning of something happening in time and in terms of God's presence in the world. And not only the significance of women in the story that holds us as one, but I was also fascinated that in that particular snippet there was a blessing given to Mary, but given by Elizabeth. And I just thought that was beautiful and must kind of, open us up to something new in terms of our whole experience of our Christian faith and our relationship.
A very rich text. It'll be interesting to see what you actually draw from that, because we invite you now to look at the text and to draw out what you think is the important thing about it. Welcome back. We invite you now to listen to the text again.
In those days, Mary set out, went with haste to a Judean town in the hill country, where she entered the house of Zechariah and greeted Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the child leapt in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit and exclaimed with a loud cry, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And why has this happened to me, that the mother of my Lord comes to me? For as soon as I heard the sound of your greeting, the child in my womb leapt for joy. And blessed is she who believed that there would be a fulfillment of what was spoken to her by the Lord."
I feel the need to take up from this gospel just a couple of days before we celebrate the birth of Christ, to sit with a familiar prayer of our church, the Hail Mary, and to allow that to lead me into Christmas.
Yeah. For me, it's this concept of greeting people. There are some people I know who they do greet with a sense of, I'm encountering the great other, the great Christ living in your heart. I don't always do that. So I'd like to catch myself out, particularly in this Advent season. How am I greeting people? Do I greet them with that open heart of Christ's presence here?
Yes, it struck a chord with me because it focuses on something I've been thinking about, and that is devotion to Mary in my life. As I read the spiritual classics, all the great saints had a great devotion to Mary. It was a very central thing. And in my own life, in the seminary, the commitment of Grignion Louis de Montfort, the devotion to Mary there, was very significant in my own personal spiritual journey. So it challenges me again to look at my devotion to Mary. It's an essential part, I think, of our journey to God. It's not an extra, and it in no way takes away from the Lord. In fact, it brings us to the Lord. That's the whole purpose of it. We invite you now to draw out something particular, something that you can apply to your life. Welcome back. We now invite you again to spend some time, this time in prayer, asking the Lord for the grace, the strength, the courage that is necessary to implement in your life what you have chosen. We conclude now, and we invite you to be with us again as we reflect next week. And we conclude in the usual way by praying the prayer of the collect of the Mass of the fourth Sunday.
Pour forth, we beseech you, O Lord, your grace into our hearts, that we, to whom the incarnation of Christ your Son was made known by the message of an angel, may by his passion and cross be brought to the glory of his resurrection, who lives and reigns for ever and ever.